the first time in 2 years, people in South Korea no longer need to wear masks on public transport. This in its latest lifting of a few last remaining COVID restrictions. North Korea conducted nuclear attack training over the weekend as the regime also fired yet another missile. South Korea's auto exports hit an all-time high last month on growing popularity of electric vehicles. Good afternoon. We begin with the much-anticipated back to normal on buses and subways. Starting today, face masks are no longer mandatory on public transport. This means the mask mandate is finally lifted in most places for the first time in more than 2 years. Our Kim Jung-sil starts us off.
Starting March 20th, people in South Korea can ride trains or buses without having to worry about masks. The government announced last Wednesday that it will now leave it to people to decide for themselves whether to wear a mask when using public transport. We went to find out what people in South Korea decided to do on the first day of these more relaxed rules. I'm at Sadang Station on subway line number 4, and as you can see behind me, the majority of the passengers are still wearing masks. But there were a few people who didn't wear a mask.
It's not that I'm not worried about COVID-19, but now that everyone's gotten it and I've had it once before, I figured it would be okay to take my mask off at this point.
For about 2 years and 5 months, people in South Korea had to wear a mask when using public transport, so some passengers said they are used to wearing it. Most of the people at this bus stop were also wearing masks.
I'm wearing the mask because it's not that uncomfortable anymore, but starting today, I'll also take my mask off.
Trains and buses aren't the only places people can now go without wearing masks. On Wednesday, the government also said that masks won't be required in specific types of pharmacies, the ones located inside supermarkets or stations. Before, people could be shopping right nearby, but then put their masks back on when using the pharmacy in those places. The government gave 2 main reasons for its decision. One is that even after the first stage of the indoor mask mandate was lifted back at the end of January, which allowed people to go to most indoor places without masks, the number of COVID-19 cases has been dropping. Another is that many people in South Korea were still wearing masks even without a mandate. Only a few places remain that require masks: regular pharmacies, hospitals, and care facilities. South Korean health officials are likely to consider lifting the mask mandate in all places only after the World Health Organization announces that COVID-19 is no longer a global emergency. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
In other news, North Korea conducted nuclear attack training over the weekend. This as the regime also fired yet another missile in its latest show of protests against the ongoing Seoul-Washington joint drills. Kim Hyun-sung reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called for the regime to stand fully ready with nuclear attacks to deter war, in a remark made during a military drill over the weekend. The North state-led Korean Central News Agency reported on Monday morning that North Korean troops on Saturday and Sunday trained to improve their nuclear attack skills in a 2-day course. Kim Jong-un oversaw the training and again brought his daughter along, who seems to be Kim Jong-un's protege. Kim added in his statement that simply having nuclear weapons is no longer enough to deter war. The North must strike fear to enemies by becoming ready with its nuclear attacks. And on Sunday morning, North Korea fired another short-range ballistic missile from Cheolsang-gun Pyeongan-bukdo province off toward the East Sea as part of its training, KCNA said. It added that the missile achieved its target by flying 800 kilometers to blow up 800 meters above the sea. It also said the drill did not in any way harm the safety of neighboring countries. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff also confirmed on Sunday that they detected a short-range ballistic missile flying for about 800 kilometers and fired off toward the East Sea. This missile firing comes in the middle of Freedom Shield, the 11-day-long Seoul-Washington joint drill. North Korea has been protesting against these war games by ramping up its weapons tests and increasing hostility in their rhetoric. The KCNA mentioned the North's discontent at American strategic assets being deployed to South Korea for the joint military training, and said that this training is also to send a stronger warning to Seoul and Washington as they continue with their exercises. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Following North Korea's missile tests over the weekend, foreign ministers of the Group 7 nations and the EU strongly condemned the launch. They also said inaction by the UN Security Council was regrettable, apparently pointing the finger at China and Russia. Bae Eun-ji has more.
Foreign ministers of the G7 nations, including the US, the UK, and Japan and the EU, condemned yet another missile launch by North Korea in the strongest terms, saying it undermines regional and international peace and security. In a statement released by the U.S. State Department on Sunday local time, the foreign ministers said they deeply regret inaction by the UN Security Council because of, quote, obstruction by some members. Although not named, the statement apparently referred to China and Russia, who have blocked recent efforts to impose tougher sanctions on North Korea. They added that North Korea's reckless behavior demands a swift and unified response from the international community, and called on all UN member states to fully implement all UN Security Council resolutions. Following Sunday's missile launch, the top nuclear envoys of South Korea, US, and Japan also condemned Pyongyang's latest provocation and discussed their coordinated responses. Seoul's foreign ministry said Kim Gun, the special representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, held phone talks with his US and Japanese counterparts, Sung Kim and Takehiro Funakoshi, where they called the North's actions a threat to peace and stability that clearly violates multiple UN Security Council resolutions. The three officials also agreed to build a firm and unified response against the North's provocations at the upcoming UN Security Council's meeting in New York on Monday. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
Amid North Korea's series of provocations, South Korea and the United States have kicked off their largest maritime landing exercise in 5 years. Part of the ongoing Freedom Shield exercise, the Ssangyong training, takes place in the southern port city of Pohang from Monday through April 3rd. South Korea's Marine Corps previously said the training will involve contingency procedures such as clearing mines, providing fire support at amphibious landing locations, and conducting air and maritime assault operations. As opposed to previous brigade-level exercises, this year's enlarged drills involve division-level amphibious landing forces, assault ships, and fighter jets. Plus, for the first time, British Marine troops are also taking part in the exercise. Following his state visit to Tokyo last week, South Korean President Yoon is gearing up to carry out follow-up measures on boosting bilateral exchanges with Japan. On Monday, the president is sitting down with Prime Minister Han Duck-soo to discuss how to move forward from his talks with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, where they agreed on pursuing a future-oriented partnership. This follows a similar meeting with top secretaries earlier the same day. Calling the trip a success the previous day, presidential spokesperson Lee Do-won said related preparations have begun in ministries and that there will be a visit to Japan by lawmakers from the ruling People Power Party, as he called the members of the opposition bloc to take the trip. He added cooperation will likely focus on chips, batteries, and electric vehicle sectors, while measures on youth exchanges will also be announced. Chinese President Xi Jinping is set to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin for the first time since the start of the Ukraine conflict. The meeting comes amid concerns over China potentially providing weapons to Russia, while Beijing casts itself as a peacemaker. Lee Seung-jae has more.
A visit for peace. That's what Beijing is calling the three-day visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping to Russia to speak with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. The visit marks his first trip to Russia in 4 years and comes just over a year after Russia began its invasion of Ukraine. Beijing signaled earlier that Xi is trying to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, and this visit may be the start of that. According to Putin's top foreign policy advisor Yuri Yushakov, the two leaders will hold an informal one-on-one meeting, followed by dinner on Monday, and hold negotiation talks on Tuesday. While the two sides will also discuss other matters, including economic cooperation, talks will likely mainly center on the possible peace deal. Xi is also expected to speak to Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky over the phone following his visit to Russia. Meanwhile, the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for the Russian president on Friday for alleged war crimes, with the court accusing Russia of the unlawful forced deportation of Ukrainian children. The Kremlin responded strongly to the arrest warrant, with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stressing that ICC decisions have no meaning to Russia, including from a legal point of view. While the arrest warrant won't likely put Putin behind bars at The Hague anytime soon, it will mean the ICC's 123 member states are obligated to detain and transfer Putin if he sets foot in their country or territory. Despite being a wanted man in the eyes of the ICC, Putin made a surprise visit to occupied Mariupol on Saturday. Mariupol had long been a symbol of Ukrainian resistance before control of the city was lost last May. Putin's trip to the city also comes on the back of the 9-year anniversary of Russia's annexation of Crimea. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now on to the emergency rescue deal for Credit Suisse. Switzerland's largest bank, UBS, has decided to take over the ailing bank amid swiftly calming fears of a wider crisis unleashed by the recent bank failures in the U.S. Ssangyong has the latest.
Credit Suisse has been rescued by rival bank UBS in a government-supported deal. Swiss banking giant UBS on Sunday agreed to buy Credit Suisse for 3 billion Swiss francs, which is around $3.25 billion US dollars.
Bringing UBS and Credit Suisse together will build on the best skills available in the Swiss financial centre and enhance the combined organisation's ability to serve our clients and deepen our best-in-class capabilities.
We are happy to have a solution that I am convinced brings sustainable stability and security for our clients, employees, the financial markets and Switzerland.
The Swiss National Bank pledged a loan of up to 100 billion Swiss francs, or $108 billion, to support the takeover. The country's finance minister also announced that the government will grant UBS a guarantee worth 9 billion Swiss francs in order to reduce any risks for the bank.
You have to imagine this is like insurance, which only takes effect should there be any losses. First, UBS would cover those losses, and then in a second phase, the government.
The takeover comes in a bid to halt the banking crisis that has been sparked by the collapse of US-based Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank earlier this month. Credit Suisse has had issues with investor confidence for some years on the back of a number of scandals and financial missteps, and saw its share price drop to a low last week not seen since the onset of COVID-19.
The takeover of Credit Suisse by UBS is the best solution for restoring the confidence that has been lacking in financial markets recently.
The deal was welcomed by U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The Bank of England also said it welcomes the measures taken by Swiss authorities to support financial stability. Under the deal, Credit Suisse shareholders will receive 1 UBS share for every 22.48 Credit Suisse shares they hold. Choi Min-jang, Arirang News.
South Korea's auto exports hit an all-time high in February on growing popularity of electric vehicles. Production and domestic demand also rose last month. Our Lee Soo-jin has this report.
The South Korean auto industry saw record high monthly exports in February. Data from the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Monday shows that outbound shipments of cars last month came to 5.6 billion US dollars. That's up around 47% from a year earlier. A total of more than 220,000 cars were exported, up almost 35% on year. The rise was mainly driven by the high demand for eco-friendly cars. Exports of eco-friendly cars rose nearly 62%, surpassing 60,000 units for the first time ever, with all types of environmentally friendly cars proving popular. The dollar value of these vehicle exports reached a record $2.02 billion, up 83.4%. The export value of eco-friendly cars has been on an upward trend since August last year, accounting for almost 40% of total car exports. The number of cars produced domestically also surged 30.2% on year to more than 343,000 units with the improvement in chip supplies. South Korean auto giants Hyundai Motor and Kia posted strong results thanks to the global demand for eco-friendly cars. Exports of Hyundai's cars surged nearly 35% to more than 94,000 units, and Kia's nearly 58% to more than 96,000 units last month. Eco-friendly vehicles are also gaining popularity in Korea. Domestic eco-friendly car sales rose around 32% compared to a year earlier, making up 30.3% of overall domestic car sales. Meanwhile, exports of auto parts last month also jumped 13.3% as outbound shipments to major markets such as North America and the European Union rose. Exports of auto parts and cars combined came to $7.6 billion, making them the nation's top export product last month. 이수진, Arirang News.
The number of South Koreans aged 15 to 29 who have decided to take a break from work or job seeking hit a record high in February. According to monthly data released by Statistics Korea, 497,000 people were economically inactive by choice, marking an all-time high since relevant data was first compiled in 2003. The non-economically active population is categorized into groups including those in education, raising children, or unable to work. But almost 500,000 people are outside these groups and said they just decided to take a break. Statistics Korea believe these people have been discouraged from job seeking due to difficulty finding the job they want. Samsung Electronics' latest phone, the Galaxy S23 Ultra, was ranked the #1 smartphone by consumer associations in 7 European markets. According to a Samsung report, the consumer associations for Belgium, Denmark, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, and the UK all gave the smartphone their highest ranking. Samsung Electronics' flagship smartphone scored between 81 and 84 points out of 100 to rank #1 on each of the rankings. It was followed by the Apple iPhone 14 Pro Max. Experts have praised the S23 Ultra's features, from a superb display and 200-megapixel camera to its fantastic performance and phenomenal battery life. Gwanghwa-side, where media artworks were displayed at Gwanghwamun Square at the heart of Seoul, has undergone a transformation, becoming a new culture hub known as K-Culture Square. Our Shin Se-byuk has this report.
Gwanghwamun Square in central Seoul has been transformed into a new cultural hub of South Korea. What used to be Gwanghwa-side, the media artwork displayed at Gwanghwamun Square, has now been rebranded as K-Culture Square, in line with the government's efforts to promote Korean culture to the overseas market.
As South Korean content garners global popularity, K-Culture Square showcases media arts and installations to celebrate Korea's cultural and technological progress.
The K-Culture screen installed on the exterior walls of the National Museum of Korean Contemporary History features various types of content. Right across the street from the digital signage, this K-Culture attraction offers an immersive journey back in time. Meet the Joseon Dynasty's legendary war hero, Admiral Lee Sun-shin. Using a panorama screen and a 4D motion chair, Lee's stories are brought to life after more than 4 centuries.
I think it was very interesting that you get to experience the battle as a first point of view rather than seeing the pictures. So for that, I think it was very nice for him to experience as well, because he was very interested in Lee Sun-shin.
Interactive and immersive media artworks welcome commuters and pedestrians at K-Culture Museum inside Gyeongbokgung subway station. Visitors can enjoy a multi-sensory experience at the exhibition with sight, sound, and even touch. The exhibition's theme of recovery and meditation in a city center creates a peaceful oasis in the midst of bustling urban life, providing visitors with a much-needed escape.
It felt so calming, given that the arts are so in nature, and it's so unique, given that there is no such thing as digital art in the Philippines. It's so amazing, and it's very different from the different museums that I've been to.
The Culture Ministry aims to promote K content to both domestic and foreign tourists through K Culture Square to enhance their experience of Korea's artistic and technological attractions. 신새벽 아리랑 뉴스.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. At least 19 people were killed and several others were left in critical condition when a bus carrying 40 passengers drove through a highway fence and crashed into a ditch. The crash occurred on Sunday morning local time in the city of Shipja, some 80 kilometers from the capital Dhaka. The cause of the crash is still being investigated, but authorities suspect that the driver lost control after a tire burst. Thousands of road deaths occur in the country every year, often the result of lax road safety laws, reckless driving and old vehicles. And despite the government's pledge to reduce road fatalities by 50% by the year 2030, traffic-related deaths in Bangladesh have continued to rise. Meanwhile, at least 16 people have been killed and hundreds have been injured after a 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck southern Ecuador and northern Peru on Saturday local time. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the earthquake was more than 65 kilometers deep and its center was 80 kilometers south of Guayaquil, an Ecuadorian city of 3 million people. The brunt of the quake was felt in Ecuador, where 15 of the fatalities were recorded. There, at least 7 houses were destroyed and dozens of buildings damaged. Power lines were also downed, complicating ongoing search and rescue efforts. Peru also reported that the roofs of some houses collapsed. Moving over to Taiwan, where former President Ma Ying-jeou is set to visit mainland China for an 11-day trip from March 27th. It's the first time that a sitting or former Taiwanese leader will visit China since 1949, when the defeated Republic of China government fled to the island. It is not known whether Ma will meet with Chinese officials. The trip comes amid heightened tensions between Taipei and Beijing, as China has continuously claimed that Taiwan is part of its sovereign territory. Ma is a senior member of Taiwan's opposition Kuomintang Party, which favors better ties with China, but says it is not pro-Beijing. But the visit has been met with backlash from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, which says that the KMT is too close to Beijing. And finally, New York City's Fifth Avenue turned green as the Big Apple held its 262nd St. Patrick's Day parade. Revelers on Friday moved from 44th Street up to 79th Street in a celebration that featured marching bands and performers. Usually celebrated on March 17th every year, the day commemorates St. Patrick and the arrival of Christianity in Ireland. People usually celebrate by wearing green, a color closely associated with Ireland. New York City's parade is one of the oldest and largest in the world, after starting back in the year 1762. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. What a dusty day we are having today. The capital region is experiencing the worst level of ultra-fine dust, with an ultra-fine dust advisory issued in the capital region Chungcheongnam-do and Jeollabuk-do provinces. So emergency ultra-fine dust reduction measures are deployed in the capital region until 9 p.m. tonight. A dry weather advisory also remains in place across Korea. Gangwon-do province already had 8 wildfires break out this month so far. Fire safety and prevention is a must around this time of year with no wet weather forecast for the area. Roller coaster temperatures continue and low single-digit figures are reaching in the mid-teens in the central regions and the 20s in the southern provinces. Mostly sunny skies, but they will be blurred by the toxic dust, and the dust level will stay unbearable through tomorrow afternoon. Then a big warm-up is on the way for the capital area. Meanwhile, Jeju and the southern provinces will see welcome rain in the middle of the week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day.